What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the NFL Betting Show as we get you ready for week 16 of the NFL season. They say it's the most wonderful time of the year. What a way to potentially get a little bit more for that stocking stuffer than to hit some bets in the weekend before the holidays. So you get a little bit of extra cash, whether you're traveling, whether you're hosting, or whether you're getting some gifts for the fam. We are here for you. I'm your host, statistician Dane Martinez. We got my man Sam Chowdhury in the building as usually, and the prop god who's going to help us out and look at all things week 16. Before we get into some of your plays, I got to ask you, we've reached the time of the year where some teams are, shutting players down, where some teams are seeing the kids, right, and want to see what some of their young studs or their rookies can do, or quite frankly, are making switches at quarterback. I mean, we've got Penix now as the starter in Atlanta. We've got DTR as the starter in Cleveland. We got Mason Rudolph as the starter in Tennessee. We might see Sam Howell or Carson Wentz. How does that, if at all, Sam, I'll start with you, kind of impact your process? Like maybe we're going to see that rookie a little bit more, and maybe that, changes the usage or the share of somebody that you're looking at. How do some of these changes where teams are checked out, booking their vacations, seeing the kids to understand their future a little bit better, does that impact you at all when you're looking at some props and plays?
I think as far as teams resting and whatnot, when their seeds are locked up, I think that's still about a week away. There's not a team that really jumps out right now. I would think maybe Houston. I think they have like almost a 90% chance to be locked in to the seed that they're on. But as of right now, there's no team as far as rest goes that I'm really worried about. I think that'll be more of a next week thing. Maybe it's a week 18 thing. But as far as the quarterback changes goes, I think for teams like Atlanta with like Penix that I haven't seen before, for the most part, I'll be staying away. But guys like Mason Rudolph or Aiden O'Connell, I am more interested because we actually do have a sample size. Mason Rudolph, for example, we saw he targets his tight ends a lot more. So, for example, Chig is a guy whose lines I was searching for. I haven't found one yet, but that's definitely one where I'll be looking at receptions and receiving yards. We had his best game last week. A lot of it came with Mason Rudolph. So specific stuff like that. Raiders too, I want to look at. It doesn't look like we're getting too much of a discount, but Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers get a massive boost with Aiden O'Connell. So stuff like that I have seen, I'll definitely look at. But for the ambiguous situations, I'd probably stay away from. For example, DTR, I don't really know how to handicap. We don't really have lines for Cleveland because we're still waiting on David Njoku, and Cedric Tillman looks probable, but not confirmed yet. So, but for the most part, I think that'll be a stay away for me.
All right, fair enough. I mean, one thing that I did learn is that DTR and Cedric Tillman were high school teammates. So maybe they have some chemistry, but otherwise, I don't think it's great for Cleveland. I'm fading a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who's been popping off lately, because I don't know if DTR can kind of move the ball. Whereas on the flip side, I actually think Mason Rudolph may be better for guys like Calvin Ridley. You mentioned Chig, the tight end, guys like NWI. And then there's all sorts of places where, for example, I don't think Alvin Kamara is going to play. I actually don't think we're going to see Kamara for the rest of the season, if you want to know the truth. And what does that mean for a guy like Kendre Miller? So, Prop, let me ask you, same kind of questions. What are you doing? I'm thinking about a guy like Darnell Mooney, who literally was profitable for us throughout a lot of the season, had literally 0 yards on Monday Night Football when Kirk Cousins could not be trusted by Atlanta. Maybe they give the keys to the car to Penix, and he can be trusted with a longest reception prop or some more volume. I don't know. How do you handle some of these changes and some of the ways you maybe anticipate teams play it as we go down the stretch, Prop?
Yeah, I would look at it like, someone like Penix, I'm not afraid to bet on. I actually would like to see if he can get Kyle Pitts a little bit more involved. I got Darnell Mooney at fantasy, and I'm in the playoffs, so I'm going to start him. And the reason why is because Atlanta's been able to protect Kirk Cousins. He's just been bad.
Right.
When you look at the offensive line numbers, he's getting the time. So I think we could see, something like maybe what we see from Jaden Daniels in Washington, where he's been pretty protected. He's been able to produce. I don't think it'll be anything that'll wow you, but his passing prop is set at 227. These rookies, their lines haven't been like that. Caleb Williams had times where his line was like, in the 190s and things like that. And Jaden Daniels too, until he started proving himself. They got Penix set at 227 already. You know what I mean? So I feel like they're expecting a little bit of something from him. So I'll trust him. I'm with the O'Connell look as well. I think that'll put Brock Bowers back and get him active. Um, you mentioned Heineke. He almost passed out in my chair, so we hope it. I definitely wouldn't be betting on him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and the last person you mentioned was the guy for Cleveland. What is it, DTJ?
DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson.
Yeah, I'm completely out on all Cleveland props. So
Yeah, I am. I might be looking at his rushing prop though. That might be something I'm interested because also Cincinnati, that matchup they give it up, right? And listen, even Justin Herbert ran against Cincinnati. Lamar runs against Cincinnati, so we shall see. But I think it is very, very interesting. By the way, prop, I also have Darnell Mooney in some fantasy leagues where I'm still live. I didn't see him last week, luckily, but I'm intrigued by potentially going back to him as well. So let's get into it here. We all got some plays for Week 16, and it's interesting. One game that we are all on is the Sunday Night Football game where the Tampa Bay Bucs, who, by the way, in my opinion, are the beneficiaries of Kirk Cousins being blown as trash all of a sudden. I mean, listen, about a month and a half ago, the Tampa Bay Bucs were plus 750 to win that division. Atlanta has completely gone in the tank. They make the quarterback switch, and Tampa has been playing well. They put up 40 against the Chargers, and the Chargers are a much better defense than who they will see again on the road on Sunday night, this time in Dallas for the Cowboys. We are all over the Tampa Bay Bucs and specifically their passing offense. So I'll start with you, Sam. How are you playing getting a piece of the Bucs pass offense?
Yeah, I just want to keep backing Baker Mayfield in this spot. You mentioned it, absolutely dominated the Chargers, and it was encouraging to see that they have had some easy matchups coming out of the bye, but that's a really great defense. It looks like two playoff teams, so it was definitely a playoff atmosphere. But overall, you look at Baker Mayfield on the season, he has 32 passing touchdowns. That's the third most in the league. He has multiple passing touchdowns in 9 games this season. Obviously, we saw 4 touchdowns last week, but that's now 3+ touchdowns in back-to-back games. And he actually gets a pretty nice matchup against Dallas, who's 19th in DVOA against the pass, allowing the 14th most passing touchdowns per game. And I'm going to go back to our DVOA adjusted tool. So like I mentioned, I mean, he's already cleared two plus passing touchdowns in 9 games this season. And then he gets Dallas. Quarterbacks against Dallas get a plus 21% boost over their median projection against Dallas. So I really like the spot for Baker. Overall, he's averaging 2.3 passing touchdowns per game on the season. With Mike Evans, it's at 2.4. So I mean, I feel like at this point, with Evans in the lineup, slowly getting a little bit healthier. We saw Bucky Irving come back, and he's played a huge role in the passing game. Jalen McMillan, now I think that's helped a lot with his touchdowns. We've seen him break away for those really long ones. So he just has a lot more weapons. I think they're figuring out life without Godwin now. And again, I just want to keep backing this Bucs team, especially Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, to me, Baker Mayfield has been criminally underappreciated over the last couple of years. He was a top 5 fantasy quarterback last year. He's top 5 in the league in yards and touchdowns, like you're saying. And I also had Jalen McMillan join us on the SiriusXM FTN Fantasy Show last week. And it was really interesting to hear from him what he has been able to learn from a guy like Mike Evans and from Chris Godwin in terms of his preparation, his keeping his body right, his mental preparation as well. We also joked with him a little bit because he's coming in from Washington. Bucky Irving, another rookie in Tampa, coming in from Oregon, so he gave Bucky and the Ducks a little bit of shade there as the Oregon Ducks enter the college football playoff. But yeah, man, it is humming for Tampa Bay. I hear that you also mentioned Mike Evans, who has come back, and I mean, I don't know if you guys all know, but the narrative is in place for Mike Evans, and that's part of why I'm there. You nod your head as well. It is death, taxes, and Mike Evans getting 1,000 yards in a season. He is 251 yards away from doing it in his 11th straight year. And this is the idea of even him missing games. We asked Jalen McMillan, are y'all talking about it in the locker room? Is everybody aware? And he chuckled. He didn't say much, but he did say that Baker is certainly aware of this. So, Prop, I see where you're going, and I'm right behind you with this play.
Yes, indeed. So we're going to go with the Mike Evans, 70-plus receiving yards, minus 125 on Bet365. Excuse me. So he's over this number in 3 straight games. And I just went back, and I used stats up over the last 4 weeks. He's dominating the target share in Tampa, 26.4% target share. 81.4% route participation. He's playing 70% of the snaps. He's averaging 103 receiving yards per game over the last 4 with 3 touchdowns. That's 414 yards, 34 targets, 26 receptions. So I love the spot for him. We know he can get vertical as well. I look at Dallas as far as receivers, getting yards after the catch. They're allowing the 5th most yards after the catch, 11th most receptions per game. So the longest reception average, they're 4th worst in the league. So I think it's a smash spot for Evans. I honestly might take it up to 102. And then he'll come out of this one maybe, 150, 125 yards away. I think it's a smash spot, especially with it being in prime time. I think Baker will give him the football. And to Sam's point, I mean, they're allowing quarterbacks to produce at a 21% rate above the league average. So I think the 1-2 punch with Baker and Mike will continue to show.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the thing you said about it being a spotlight primetime game on Sunday night. And listen, Tampa's got something to play for. Okay, Not only with Atlanta, who, by the way, has the Giants, so maybe whoever's at quarterback can win there. But Tampa also, they got to worry about seeding. You got Detroit, you got Philly, right? But that 3-4 seed is probably going to be potentially them if they win the NFC South. And then whoever's in the NFC West, right? And so you also have to look at that. They have a ton to play for. We've got Slim in the building saying Prop loves the East Coast. Prop, if you over in my neck of the woods, man, here in the New York area, you got to hit me up so we could get down and make some solidarity props and then also watch it. I am with Prop. I am on Mike Evans as well. He has him over 70-plus yards at minus 125. This is why the prop shop is so great. Over at MGM, the number is 67.5. Okay, over at Bet365, the number is 70.5. So make sure you use the prop shop to shop around, get the best of the number, get the best of the juice. But I like a lot of the stuff that Prop said. Here's what I'll add. Trayvon Diggs is out for the year for the Dallas Cowboys as well. That's their best cornerback, right? So he's going to draw Deron Bland. As I go to a wide receiver cornerback matchup tool, the matchup for Mike Evans is in the green. We color code them. It's one of the top 20. It's in the green at something over 71, which is his matchup rating. You mentioned the yards after catch as well. Dallas has allowed 1,840 yards after the catch. They allow 6.5 yards after the catch per reception. That is the most in the NFL as per our stats hub. They also, the adjusted completion percentage against them is over 80%. That's the 4th highest in the NFL. So Baker, I think, will be able to complete passes. Sam was talking about how Baker has been good, and I obviously agree with Prop that they're going to target him. He's been good in 2 of his last 3 games. Mike, Prop, you talk about the ladder potential, right? In 2 of his last games, Evans has had at least 118 yards. He's had at least 8 or more catches. He's had at least 11 or more targets. So I do think they're going to pepper him in this game, and obviously with the idea of him getting to 1,000 yards being on the line as well. So we all see that. Maybe you want to do a little same game parlay if they offer a boost for you there. Take Tampa Bay on the money line with the spread, what have you. Bet a little bit on Baker and a little bit on Mike Evans. You have a 3-leg parlay right there that may be able to get boosted. Sam, let's go back over to you. Kyler Murray has been interesting. Literally, I saw splits from him before and after Call of Duty was released, and it's a little bit different. I will say that, but you believe in this matchup against Carolina. I mean, I kind of was on Carolina last week when they were favored for the first time in like 2.5 years, but we saw Bryce Young turn the ball over a ton, and Dallas went in there with Cooper Rush. He went in there and actually cooked the Carolina Panthers. And you think Kyler, the Cardinals, who do have stuff to play for as well, you think Kyler can be productive in this one in Carolina?
Yeah, I think that is the main concern. You hit on what Carolina looked like last week.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the main concern was Call of Duty, but go ahead.
Actually, surprisingly, what I was going to touch on, Kyler actually has sort of he's actually been better since Call of Duty came out. So it is sort of refreshing. They are still live for the playoffs, but like I said, that's the main concern is can Carolina push them? Because if they can't, they're just going to feed it to James Conner 30-plus times, and Kyler's going to come nowhere close to this. So I want to believe that Carolina can stay close enough where Kyler Murray does have to drop back, but we've sort of seen a philosophical change in Arizona's offense coming out of the bye. Overall, Kyler Murray had 259 or more passing yards in each of his last 4 games. Before last week, he missed this number by 1. He had 224 yards last week. So it all comes down to game script there. And I mean, I do think Arizona wins this game, but I don't think that Arizona can get the same type of pressure we saw from Dallas. So I think at least Carolina can stay in it enough to where Kyler Murray is pushed. I mean, coming out of the bye, Kyler Murray is averaging 37.5 dropbacks per game. And we know everyone runs against Carolina, but they're also 30th in DVOA against the pass. So I think they are going to have a lot of success through the air. If Kyler Murray doesn't get the volume, I think he'll at least get the chunk plays to hit this mark. I mean, 225, it's not really asking for a lot. He doesn't need a huge game. It's only, like I said, 225 yards, and he's closer to 260 coming out of the bye. So, and I'm going to go back to the DVOA adjusted tool. Quarterbacks see a plus 22% boost in production against Carolina. That's the 4th highest rate in the league. So, I mean, it's a smash spot for Kyler. Again, I want to see the volume, but I don't think he needs that much volume. I mean, he's, like I said, he's close to 40 dropbacks out of the bye. I think if he gets at least at 30, he can get this number.
All right, fair enough. We got Slim in the building again, liking what you're saying over here and thinking about it could be a good spot for Marv as well. You know, the rookie has underperformed at times, but says it's a good spot because J.C. Horn, their big cornerback, does not necessarily travel with the number 1. I also heard this week that Kyler was saying this is the week that Trey McBride gets into the end zone. So maybe there's a lot of stuff about all of these Cardinals, but we shall say. Prop, I'll go on over to you. And listen, I gave out a prop on this guy last week on the Monday Night Football on the SiriusXM show. And by the way, if you need a code, FTN Show is a great promo code to use. You get a little bit of a discount. It is perfect for the fantasy player, for the better in your life. You get a discount getting down with us. We are FTN for the numbers and for you. But I was on this guy, Prop, because basically what defenses have to do is either roll coverage, double up Justin Jefferson. We lost your Prop. I know you're still there. Double up Justin Jefferson. But if not, you got Jordan Addison. You got TJ Hawkinson and what I call the My Three Sons offense, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. And I know you believe in Jordan Addison, who has really been able to do well and go over his number recently.
Yeah, is my audio good? I think
it's good. We hear you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so I'm going to rock with the Addison 50-plus receiving yards. Mine is 120 on Bet365. I had him last week against the Bears, too. I actually had laddered him up. He sold it a bit short, but the game kind of got out of hand, too, right. So I'm not going to blame him for that. But he's over the 50-plus in 5 straight games. Over his last 5, he's averaging 94.6 yards per game. He's got 2 performances of over 130 yards in the last 5. So, I wrote an article about him in my route tree last week, and I feel like, the connection with him and Darnold is there now. It's like the perfect time for the Vikings. Perfect matchup for him, too, looking at FTN's DVOA, adjusted fantasy points against Tua. The Seahawks are allowing wide receiver 2s to produce at a rate 14% above the league average. So, looking at our projections for him, the same as Mike Evans, we got him going way over. We got him for 67 yards with a 13.3% edge. We got Evans for 92 yards, by the way, for the viewers. So smash spots for both of them. But yeah, I'm loving Addison again. I'm not mad at a mini ladder for him in this spot too.
All right, fair enough. We got Sosa in the building as usual, saying appreciate the cash, appreciate the money. Obviously plugged into Prop all the time and gets down with FTN. What's going on, Sosa? We appreciate you. And by the way, when you're talking about appreciate the money, last week I gave you a prop when it was me and Prop. I gave you the passing yards on Aaron Rodgers going over his number against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he did so. He hit it. He was in like the 280s. That coming off a 300-yard game. I am going back to Aaron Rodgers. I think he's been good, and I like him not in yards, but I think he's going to throw for some touchdowns here against the Los Angeles Rams at home, okay? He's been good lately in his last 6 games. 13 touchdowns for A-Rod, only 1 interception. He's had 2 or more touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 and 5 of his last 7 games. People talking about Aaron Rodgers is washed. Well, guess what? If he's washed, I think there's a lot of quarterbacks out there that would love to be as washed as him. He has 23 touchdowns on the season. That is 7th most in the NFL. And you heard about how banged up he was in the middle of the season. It seems like he's getting a little bit healthier. He's moving better in the pocket. His average quarterback rating over these last 6 or 7 games is 102. It's been good. And as for our stats hub, one of the great stats we have are highlight throws. And Aaron Rodgers is second in the NFL behind only Josh Allen in terms of making those kind of big-time throws. So, the arm talent is still there. And now he gets the Los Angeles Rams. Los Angeles Rams have given up 23 passing touchdowns via the air. That is tied for the 8th most. So they're bottom 10 in the league. They have allowed 2 or more touchdowns in 4 of their last 7 games. All right. They've allowed 2 or more touchdowns to Josh Allen, Drake May, Geno Smith, and Sam Darnold. The guys that could not get 2 touchdowns against them were Caleb Williams, Aiden O'Connell, and then Brock Purdy in the rain when nobody scored. I think this version of Aaron Rodgers is most closer to the former group than to the latter group. And I think Aaron Rodgers has been doing well. I think the Rams are going to be able to put up points, which keeps a passing game script for Aaron Rodgers. I think he gets into the end zone twice, maybe Devontae Adams once, maybe the tight end once, even a little dump off to Breece Hall. Keep an eye out on the practice reports for the Jets as well. Breece Hall is battling a knee. We got Braylon Allen limited. We got Isaiah Davis limited. But all things considered, I think that's more reason for Aaron Rodgers, and I like him to throw at least 2 touchdowns in this one. All right, let's go on over to Sam. We each got one more that we want to give you, and then we'll look at the slate overall. Sam, you're going to Jacksonville. Listen, Jacksonville plays the Raiders in what I think is a battle for a top draft pick, right? But sometimes when 2 bad teams play, you wind up getting points and production. And I know you're going back to the well with a fill-in tight end who actually has some chemistry with Mac.
Yeah, I actually think that this could be a gross, sneaky shootout just with how bad the 2 defenses are. But yeah, we got the late news last week that Evan Ingram was going to go on the IR, is going to be done for the rest of the season. And then we saw Brenton Strange, who a lot of people sort of scoffed at this pick in the draft. They just signed Evan Ingram. Why are you drafting another tight end? But we saw Brenton Strange slot right into the Evan Ingram role. I mean, it was even a better role than Evan Ingram, just with all the guys out. Obviously they don't have Christian Kirk or Gabe Davis either. But, I mean, Strange, he played nearly all the snaps. He ran around on 85.4% of Mac Jones's dropbacks. He saw 12 targets on the day, caught 11 of them for 72 yards. And it does feel a bit chasey, but, I mean, you look at the guys that they have on Jacksonville. Outside of Brian Thomas, there's no one else. And when a guy gets 12 targets, I just want to go right back to it, especially if they're going to hang a line at 32.5. I mean, we were talking about the pre-show. He cleared this in the first quarter alone. So 32.5 for a full game. I have this closer to 40. I think you can play this at 40.5. I think that's more of a fair line, but regardless, I'll happily take it at 32.5. And on top of that, on top of the target share, the matchup is great as well. The Raiders overall in the season, 21st in DVOA against the pass and 26th against tight ends. They allow the 7th most targets, 5th most receptions, and 5th most receiving yards per game to opposing tight ends. Going to go back to the DVOA adjusted tool. Tight ends see a plus 24% boost over their median production against Las Vegas. That's the 4th highest rate in the league. So you have the target share, you have the matchup. Everything just falls in line for another big game for Strange. But 32.5, I mean, he just has to be okay to hit that number.
Yeah, I like that. And listen, I think that Mac Jones can maybe do a little bit more against Vegas than what we saw out of Kirk Cousins on Monday night. So I'm not mad at that. And I agree with you, Sam. When 2 bad teams happen, you might get a sneaky shootout going back and forth with these bad defenses. Prop, let's go to you. You're banking on kind of, the best running back in the league so far this year. And with Devontae Smith banged up, with A.J. Brown banged up, and in a divisional matchup, it is no coincidence that you think Philly could rely on Saquon and that he could break one on Sunday.
Yes, indeed. It's kind of like the same thing with Mike Evans. Saquon's history. So I'm gonna, pretty much find a way to bet on him every week until the season is over. And we got his longest rush at over 17.5 yards, minus 120 on Bet365. And this is the sweet spot for him. A couple weeks, he's been at 19.5, 20.5, and things like that. But the 17.5 has been a smash spot all season. He's over in 11 out of 14 games. He's over in 5 straight. Coming into this one, you got the lousy Commanders rush defense, who they are allowing the 5th most rushing yards per game. When it comes to the longest rush, they are allowing the 8th longest average of a longest rush at 23.46. And then if you look at FTN's stats up, shout out to you.
Yeah.
Explosive runs, they are tied for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're tied for the 6th most explosive runs allowed, 51 runs of 10 yards or more, and a 13.1% explosive run rate allowed. They 844 yards just off explosive runs for the Commanders defense. So I think it's a great spot for Saquon. He shredded them last time we saw him too. So I think Philly definitely gets him involved because they want him to get that record. He's got to have some big games, and he ends the season against the Giants. I can't wait for that one. So I'm thinking he racks up about 150 rushing yards, and he'll bring a couple big ones.
Yeah, listen, I like that as well. I mean, there's no problem going against Saquon. The other thing I would also say is that Saquon had like a pedestrian effort last week, against Pittsburgh. I think he only had like 60 yards or so. Trust me, I have on a ton of fantasy teams, and I needed him. So I think a bounce back spot for Saquon is certainly there. My last one, listen, Prop, shout out to you. And we have both been looking at Stats Hub, thinking about run defenses to attack. You bring up the Washington defense. You guys know the run defense I attack every single week is the New York Football Giants, and they've got Bijan Robinson running up against them this week, and I'm taking Bijan's over. Now, listen, the quarterback change I don't know if they're going to fully give Penix the keys to the car. You know what I mean? If they're going to let him kind of turn it loose. But I don't think it matters. I think what we saw last week against Vegas for Atlanta is they realized they could hop in, hop out, get a victory just relying on Bijan. And I think on some level, they're going to be able to do that again against, as Prop knows, as Sam knows, as Stats Hub shows us, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. The New York Giants give up 4.9 yards a carry. They give up 2.8 yards a carry after contact. Both of those are tied for 2nd worst in the NFL. Prop just told you about how we look into the explosive runs against, and he talked about Washington. Well, the Giants are even worse. They have 60 explosive runs allowed against them. That's tied for 2nd most in the NFL. Their 14.7% of explosive runs against them is the worst in the NFL. I think Bijan is going to be able to do work. I think he's going to be able to break at least one long one. I know 87.5 is a little bit of a high total, but I am not scared. Bijan has 85 or more rushing yards in 5 of his last 6. He's 5th in the NFL with over 1,100 yards so far. And I actually think that with the move to Penix, they are going to rely on Bijan a little bit more. The other thing I'll say about this is the Atlanta Falcons are at home, and they are 8.5-point favorites against the Giants. So I also think the game script will be there towards the end of the game where they're not going to need Penix to kind of risk it or anything like that. He's just going to turn around, give the ball to Bijan to continue to get first downs and continue to run clock. So I like Bijan Robinson over 87.5 yards. So those are our props. The last thing I want to do, like I always do, is we've got the slate for week 16. Where are we going? Sam, one thing, I don't know if you guys saw, because I know, Sam, you've been over on the Lions all year long, right? And then I don't know if you guys saw this, but David Montgomery, who got banged out, right? He's out for the rest of the year. Did you guys see that his season-long run prop at FanDuel was 775 yards, and the man is going to finish with 775 yards? I think that is absolutely ridiculous, unless, of course, you bet the under. Then you're thanking your lucky stars. But, Sam, I know you're looking for ways to bet the Lions all the time. What do you think about them outdoors against the Bears? I was looking for Jahmyr Gibbs numbers, right? But his rushing plus receiving yards number is like in the 120s, the 130s. So I had to stay away from it. But are you going back to the Lions? What do you think is the impact of Montgomery being out, them being outdoors? And don't look now, they got the same record as Philly. They got the same record as Minnesota still in their division as well. Are you trying to find a way to get back on Detroit, or are you looking elsewhere here on this board for week 16?
Yeah, you mentioned the Jahmyr Gibbs. That was the first thing I want to look at, was how high can we get the Jahmyr Gibbs line. But I mean, I think it's kind of uncomfortable when you get that high. I mean, I don't want to take the under on that. I actually, for today, I will be having an article coming out with Jahmyr Gibbs using the part of the split series, what we saw without Montgomery last season. But I don't really have a creative way to back Detroit. I am pretty worried about this team. I mean, obviously, David Montgomery is what we care about as fantasy players, but that defense has just been decimated. I think overall, the defense taking a step back is going to be really great for Jared Goff and the entire offense. You see the kind of performances he can have, dropping over 40 fantasy points last week when this team is getting pushed, which isn't often this season. But with the defense, slowly getting phased out the way it is, I think we are going to see a lot more. We're going to see Jared Goff get a lot more push. And I do like seeing that version of Jared Goff come out. But yeah, it looked like for a time that Detroit was going to run away with the number one seed, obviously in the division and even in the NFC overall. But now you're seeing Minnesota's right there at their heels. So it's crazy for a team that's been this good all season long. They are pretty much a must win every week now. So it'll be exciting to see how that shakes out. But yeah, as of this week, sort of a stay away off of Detroit right now.
No, that makes sense. By the way, you could have gotten last week Minnesota, I believe, at 6-1 to be the number one seed in the NFC. They're at the same record, and there is a game still coming up between the two of them. Remember that when they played, it was a last-second field goal by Detroit, which is why they won. I'm going to tell you real quick. I see two huge numbers on this Week 16 slate, the Bills and the Packers as 2 touchdown favorites. I am not afraid of either one of them. I actually think Buffalo and Green Bay recently, their offenses have been humming, and I think I would lay those numbers against the New England Patriots, and the New Orleans Saints is going to be a problem. I've been telling people, as for the fantasy side, that the Green Bay Packers defense is the one to stream in your semifinals. The Saints are going, whether it's Hainer, whether it's Rattler, I don't care, but they're going outside of the dome up north to the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field in a spotlight Monday Night Football game. I am all over Green Bay. I think I would lay those big numbers. Prop, let's end it up with you, though. Do you see anything here on the Week 16 slate that you like?
Yeah, if I'm looking at an underdog, I actually like the Texans, to be honest. Not sure with Mahomes or not. They're getting 3.5 points on the road in Kansas City. I think that the offense is explosive enough to be able to put up some points on Kansas City. Not to disrespect their defense, but I think it's a good spot for the Texans. And if Mahomes does play, it's not him at 100%. And we've seen that this Kansas City offensive line has not been able to protect Mahomes. So that's why he's coming into this game with the high ankle sprain. So I think the Texans will be able to get after him, and they'll be able to score as well. So they were my favorite underdog this week.
Fair enough. And yeah, if I'm talking about a dog real quick, give me Mike Tomlin. Give me Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they're like 6 points.
Crazy.
Don't get me wrong. I like Baltimore. I actually, at the beginning of the season, picked the Baltimore Ravens to go to the Super Bowl. Okay. And so I like Baltimore. But if you're going to give me 6 points with Mike Tomlin and you're going to give me that kind of divisional matchup, which I think will be a lower scoring game, so 6 points actually matters a little bit more with that division and everything on the line, I wouldn't be mad at you taking the Steelers plus the points. But that about does it for us. Listen, guys, next week we got people traveling. We got the holidays and all that. So we're going to find a way to get you this content. It may not be on our normal time. We may push it back a little bit, but we'll find a way to get you some extra holiday cash. But let me be the first to wish our guy Sam, our guy Prop, and you out there a happy holiday. Spend some time with your families. Enjoy the year. And when we come back, hopefully we all have some extra cash and we're all ready to attack 2025. So for my guy Sam, for my guy Prop, I am merely the spitting statistician Dane Martinez saying go on and get those bets in before the numbers move. And as always, check the prop shop to make sure you get the best of the number. It's another edition of the NFL Betting Show. We're in the books. We'll see you guys next week. Happy Week 16. We out of here. Peace.